young daughters, former Captain, Green Beret, Dr. Jeffrey MacDonald. Do I still call you doctor?
Yes, you do. Thank you.
They haven't stripped you of that title?
Well, the state license has been taken because a person who has a felony conviction cannot have a state license, but the degree, a physician's degree, still remains with me.
So, how much time are you serving?
Well, I have been told by Judge Dupree to serve a triple life term consecutively. I have spent, to date, a little over 7 years in prison.
And you're where now, sir?
Currently, I'm in Terminal Island Federal Prison in San Pedro, California.
What's it like?
Well, it's a prison. I'm in a bad portion of it right now, unfortunately. I'm being kept in a lockdown situation because my normal prison, in quotes, is Phoenix, Arizona. Mm-hmm. I'm here basically for a civil suit that has occurred recently between myself and Joe McGinniss.
Who wrote the book about you, which influenced many, many people.
That's correct.
What did he think about you? What did he think about you at the beginning? What does he feel about you now?
Well, that's an interesting question because it's very difficult for anyone to answer that, including following the civil trial, because his versions vary so greatly. I thought for the 4 years that he was writing the book that he was my best friend, or one of my 3 best friends. Mm-hmm. He acted that way, he wrote letters that way, and every interface between Joe and I seemed to be a normal, rational, friendly, supportive type of relationship. He was allegedly writing the book that would help in my ultimate vindication. We found out the day the book was published, of course, that such was not the case, and he had been secretly writing the government version of the case for most of those 4 years. If he ever felt good about me, I can't tell you when that changed, because his relationship with me in person and in letters never changed until the book came out.
Well, now, as I understand it from a conversation a long while back with the author, he originally believed the tale that you told,
right,
that on the night of February 17, 1970, you were aroused from your sleep on the living room couch by a group of, the words he used were drug-crazed hippies. Actually, they're your words, too, who shouted, "Kill the pigs," and "Acid is groovy," and the like, and that you were attacked, that they were attacked, you were knocked unconscious, and your wife, Colette,
that's right,
screamed out for help, and she was murdered, and your 2 5-year-old girls were slaughtered.
Well, one was 5, one was 2, that's correct.
What changed his mind?
Again, I don't know. I can't answer that. He didn't do a very good job of answering it at the civil trial. He said basically it was an accumulation of things over the years. However, every interface that I had with him remained positive, including the 50 or so letters that he wrote to me over those years that I kept and used them at the civil trial. Mm-hmm. We can't believe that he actually believes what he wrote in the book. It's just simply astonishing misinformation, and has clearly been disproven in many, many forums.
So how has it hurt you if you're already behind bars, already serving such a formidable sentence?
Oh, it was a devastating blow to myself personally, my family, the defense team, and I think most of all to my appeals.
Who's left in your family, sir?
I have a mother, a brother, a sister.
Do they believe your innocence?
I'm sorry?
Do they believe your innocence?
Oh, of course. Absolutely. They've all been privy to the information, to the multiple repeat investigations of the case. They have seen all the statements. They have heard all the witnesses. And they believe in me because the facts are there to verify that.
Let me ask you a couple of blunt, basic questions.
All right.
And then if your answer is no to them, then my follow-up question is going to be, then why aren't you mad? And by mad, I mean crazy. The questions that come to my mind are, did you inflict any of the injuries which resulted in the deaths of your wife and children?
Never. I never harmed my wife and my children in any way at any time.
Then let me take that same question and word it slightly differently. Did you yourself directly cause the deaths of your wife and children?
I did not.
And you've answered this so many times. Did you arrange with or directly assist anyone else to cause the deaths of your family?
No, I did not.
Then why aren't you crazy?
Well,
I mean, do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand exactly.
I could not live with the burden of being falsely accused. How do you do it?
Well, I've answered this many times, so if it sounds a little rote, I apologize for that in advance.
No, you don't need to apologize.
I've spent 18 years wrestling with this, and I think that the battle right now, the ongoing battle, is part of the way I stay sane. But I think the greater answer is that I know the truth of what happened that night, and I refuse to be... I refuse for this wrongful accusation and conviction to stand, and I'm going to fight for my innocence until I'm vindicated.
Doesn't that become more difficult as time passes?
Oh, absolutely. This is the game that the government and, in fact, Joe McGinniss and Alfred Kassab have been playing by keeping me here, by writing the book, by the TV movie. They have basically prevented my appeal process. As a matter of fact, it's very interesting. We found out that NBC moved up the first showing of Fatal Vision 6 months from their previously scheduled time for it to coincide with my appeal process in North Carolina.
Yeah, but that's not to make you seem more guilty. That's done to get ratings. I wouldn't ascribe that much morality to any network.
Oh, I agree with that, unfortunately.
On that note, can I pause and identify my network?
Yes.
We'll continue the conversation. Our guest is former Green Bay Captain Dr. Jeffrey MacDonald, who's serving time in connection with the death of his wife and 2 children. He's speaking to us from Terminal Island Penitentiary. Set the scene again. Captain Jeffrey MacDonald, our guest, the doctor, murdered in cold blood his wife and 2 daughters. He's serving time, possibly forever. He's calling us from the federal prison, Terminal Island in California. You say you didn't do it, so obviously, but then do you know who did it?
Yes, we do.
How definitively, how assuredly?
Oh, we're positive.
Specifically?
We know specifically a group of people that were in the house that night who were seen going to the house, who were seen coming from the house, who were seen in bloody clothing and boots shortly thereafter, and who have all confessed to their complicity in the crimes.
How do they confess? Where? So to whom?
Well, that answer isn't a simple sentence.
No.
One person, a woman by the name of Helena Stokely, confessed many times. The first time...
Is that the one who claimed to be under mescaline or something?
That's correct. She was in fact taking mescaline, but there's a question about how many other drugs she was taking. Apparently there was some heroin, there were some amphetamines, there may have been some barbiturates also, and also LSD. She has confessed in writing and signed the confession and initialed each page. It was a typical police interrogation that was handled by Ted Gunderson, the former special agent in charge of the Los Angeles FBI office.
Yes. What does he believe?
Oh, he believes very deeply in my innocence. Ted Gunderson has worked on my case for the defense since post-conviction in 1979. He came on board after the trial, and he came on board for a retainer, and he said to us, I will use this retainer for the first 2 to 3 months, at the end of which I will tell you what I think. I will then proceed if I think it's going to lead to anything positive, or I will tell you that I do not think, A, you either have a chance, or B, you're guilty.
Captain MacDonald, I've always believed, maybe naively, that juries try and do the job fairly. When they're confronted with a man who's a captain and a doctor, a Green Beret, don't you think that they want to be sympathetic to you, to a man who's lost his wife and children?
I would hope so.
Wouldn't you have, did the jury do its best? Did they try to be fair?
I think they tried to be fair. I think that what you have to understand is that there were basically 4 legs to our defense. 3 of them were entirely taken away from us. We were left on a one-legged stool, and that was simply that basically my history as a person is as of a decent, caring, loving person. The more important parts of the defense, because the government was putting forth a, quote, circumstantial evidence, end quote, that was based on highly speculative forensics, the 3 most important legs of my defense all were denied by Judge Dupree. What I mean by that is the jury never heard the three most important aspects of my defense. They heard a very limited version of the evidence. The hearing officer 9 years earlier, in 1970 at Fort Bragg, Colonel Warren Rock, he heard the evidence for 5 full months. He heard all the witnesses, and he heard them when they were fresh. And he heard them before the lapse in 9 years sort of weakens several witnesses' testimony. And he found that the charges against me were not true. He didn't say that he was throwing the charges out because there was a lack of evidence. He said the charges against Captain Jeffrey R. MacDonald are not true. In addition, he recommended the government look into Helena Stokely and her alibi for the night of February 17th, 1970.
So you're an awfully convincing man. If my name was Gunderson, and I had the experience I had, I'd come to you and I'd say, look, I want to believe you maybe, and I just have an instinct that possibly you're innocent. Prove it. Have you taken lie detector tests?
I have.
What do they show?
They show that I'm telling the truth. It was done by perhaps one of the 2 or 3 most foremost experts in the world, Dr. David Raskin at the University of Utah.
Is that not admissible evidence?
It's not if the government objects to it, and they object to it vehemently in my case.
See, what I don't quite follow is this. I painted the picture of you in the eyes of a jury, but now I picture in the eyes of the government. They don't want one of their own captains, a Green Beret and a doctor, guilty. Why would they want you to be the one found guilty?
Well, that answer is difficult. We're in the midst of finding out, we think, the final reasons for that, but there are several that are quite astonishing. One is that one of the investigators in the case appears to be deeply involved in the drug underworld in the Fayetteville area. Mm-hmm. The female in the case, Helena Stokely, was an informant to that CID agent and to the local Fayetteville police. This fact was, of course, hidden from us until 1983, 13 years later.
Was any evidence missing? Any evidence that would have made your case easier?
A terrific amount of evidence was missing. There was almost an unbelievable litany of lost evidence, changed evidence, evidence that the CID attempted to get forensic people in laboratories to alter the meaning of, and multiple items that showed up in early police reports and then suddenly disappeared from the records, never to be seen again. Each of those items, and we have found 7 of them to date, by themselves pointed directly towards my innocence. And when you add the 7 missing items together, there's no question what happened to the evidence in the case. Anything that was favorable to myself simply disappeared.
On that note, could we pause a moment and more, and then I have a couple more questions. We're speaking with Jeffrey MacDonald. Dr. MacDonald was a Green Beret, a captain, and he was found guilty of the murder of his wife and 2 children. We'll continue. He's behind bars in Terminal Island Prison at the moment. Jackson, this is Talk Radio. We're discussing the aftermath of 3 brutal murders. It's many years since, but it's very much part of the life of the man accused and found guilty, Dr. Jeffrey MacDonald, who's calling us from the Terminal Island Penitentiary in Long Beach, California. Final couple of quick questions, sir. What new evidence has come forth since the trial?
Well, it's a huge list, Mr. Jackson. I think we can start with the fact that we found post-trial that my earliest government prosecutor, the man who specifically turned the investigation away from Helena Stokely and towards me, is my judge's son-in-law. We find this an astonishing relationship, and we are just amazed that the courts have not overturned my case based on that alone.
Which is what kind of evidence?
Well, the evidence that's come forth since trial involves several areas. One is a group of 7 items of evidence that apparently was lost in some manner or fashion by the government. Each of those 7 items points towards my innocence. For instance, they had in their possession the bloody clothing and boots of Helena Stokely. She had given them to a friend. The friend gave them to another friend with the quote, "Helena wants you to keep these from the police." They immediately went to the CID with that material. That material was never lab tested and was given back to that friend and is no longer available.
Speaking of blood, was your wife's blood and your children's blood on your person? On you?
Well, they never typed any blood on me. They washed me when I went to the hospital. But I had been doing mouth-to-mouth resuscitation on my wife and both of my daughters. There was blood on my face, and I presume some of that was theirs.
So did the Army find you not guilty at first?
That's correct. they did.
Did they do a sloppy job?
They did a fairer job than what happened in the 1974-75 grand jury reinvestigation. It was not a perfect investigation in 1970, but it was fairer. They did bring in all important witnesses, whether they were for or against me.
Mm-hmm.
What happened from that point on was that the CID agents who had been so roundly castigated by myself, by my father-in-law, by the press, on the Dick Cavett Show, by Walter Cronkite, etc., had gotten the hair up on the back of their necks, so to speak, and from that point on, no evidence that was favorable to myself ever appeared in any neutral forum again.
Doctor, let me see if I summarize what you're saying. You were convicted of murder because it was shown at the trial that your wife and children were brutally killed.
That's
Fact.
correct.
You were convicted despite the fact, if I understand you correctly, that there was no conclusive evidence presented that you committed the murders?
That's absolutely correct. The only evidence that was presented was evidence that I was in the house that night. That is the only evidence that was presented. They claim, by reconstructing a hypothetical, and I really must reiterate the importance of that word, they supposedly reconstructed the crime scene and said, these blood spots in this room and these fibers from my pajama top or my pajama bottoms in this room mean that what Dr. Jeffrey MacDonald has said can't be true, therefore he must be guilty.
So you're saying also then you were convicted not by physical evidence, but by some kind of persuasion based upon sort of do-it-yourself psychiatry?
Well, there was a combination of do-it-yourself psychiatry, yes, and strangely enough, the judge ruled against all of the psychiatric evidence, all of which was favorable to me, contrary to the view shown in Fatal Vision. In other words, the 5 physicians who examined me forensically, 3 for the prosecution and 2 for the defense, were all ready to testify in 1979, and we were begging to be allowed to put all 5 people in front of the jury. The government opposed it bitterly, and the judge ruled against the admissibility of 5 forensic psychiatrists who had examined me. It was an astonishing turn of events.
What do you do next, sir?
Well, I'm fighting hard to continue on the development of new evidence. In addition to the Helena Stokely confession and several other confessions from her group of co-assailants, we have located and corroborated from hundreds of leads, thousands of leads actually. We have 37 witnesses at this point who really corroborate the existence of this group, their confessions, they're going to the house, they're coming from the house, and they're admitting their guilt.
Doctor, a point of interest in your eyes. If you had committed the crimes, should you be alive?
That's a very difficult situation, Mr. Jackson. I've been tormented by that question for many years now because I think my initial gut feeling would be no.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I should be. And I've looked at other heinous crimes that I read about,
yes,
and I thought to myself, that individual has no right to be present on the face of this earth. Yet, I've been charged of a heinous crime. I know the facts. The facts are actually very clear. If we can ever get into a neutral courtroom, a judge and a jury is going to see the facts are clear and I'll be vindicated. So far, we've been prevented from getting into a neutral courtroom, but it will happen eventually. But what I'm saying is, I have this terrible fear, this tremendous ambivalence about that question because I know I'm innocent. We now have the evidence, and yet our system of justice, which is clearly less than perfect, but I never thought this horrible, has prevented me from proving that innocence. And so I, in many state courts, would have been already executed.
Then you could never have proven anything.
It's a terrible conundrum. It's really a horrible position to be in. I don't know the answer to that. Certainly back in 1969, 70, and into the early 70s, I would have said for sure anyone convicted of a horrible crime like the murder of your own family should be put to death. This is a difficult question at this point because this is 18 years later and I'm in prison. I've been in prison 7 years and I'm innocent. So I don't know anymore.
Doctor, may we speak again sometime?
Yes.
thank you very much indeed for finding the time to answer some pretty blunt and pointed questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Good day, sir.
Right.
That's Captain MacDonald. Behind bars, as you heard, Jeffrey